My money.
Money.
I get money from you.
Money in the bank.
Young money.
Money, 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 money. It's a rich man's world.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
World-renowned financial advisor and best-selling author Barry James Dyke will arm you with the truth. This is The Economic Warrior.
Please note, the opinions expressed on this show are of the individuals who speak them, and not necessarily of Portsmouth Community Radio, its members, or Board of Trustees.
And good afternoon or good morning if you're out in other parts of the country. But we have a wonderful show here today. We have Terry Cook, actually, who's a friend and business associate. But we're going to talk to Terry today from North Carolina about how life insurance helps save the family farm, which is just a great subject to discuss ways to save on the Economic Warrior Show. First of all, I just want you to tell the audience about your background, where you grew up and on a family farm, and what you've been doing professionally. Then we're going to get into how your dad used life insurance to save the family farm.
Okay. Originally from Washington State, born in Seattle. Grew up on a farm in southeastern Washington State. I hated it growing up, too much work. I thought I was part of the free labor pool, but we worked hard. Grew sugar beets, hay, corn, wheat. Also had a dairy farm, which is a 24/7, 365-day-a-year job. But wanted to get out of it, but I cherish my memories and what I had there. Went to school at BYU and got into the insurance business mainly because of my belief system in it. I think I told you that I'm a product of life insurance. And so got into it at the age of 21 as a college agent, helped me through school. And when I was getting ready to get out of school, I decided to get into it full time. And for the last 25 years, I've run regions for a couple of different life insurance companies, and I now run a region for the Southeast, and I live in the Charlotte area.
That's great. Now, what intrigued me is that, okay, maybe I got this wrong, Terry, but you said you learned a lot of this stuff from your dad, am I correct? Is where he was a really prudent, thrifty guy who used to put a lot of money in life insurance and how it saved the family farm. I thought it was in Iowa. Was it in Washington State?
Washington State. No, Washington State. Southeastern Washington State. Most people think that Washington is green and wet, but when you cross the mountains, there's a desert over there and a great big farming area. So I grew up in Washington State.
Okay, all right. Well, on the announcement, Terry, I said it was Iowa. So in any event, Tell us about the economics of the farming business, because it's a really tough business. Am I correct?
It is. We never made a lot of money. There were, a couple of times when, I got after my dad. I'd say, Dad, you do all of this, you work so hard and you never know if you're going to make any money. And he always says, well, I'm not in it for the money. He loved it. But he grew up on a farm in Idaho. Maybe that's where he
Okay, yeah, that's where I got it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he grew up on a farm in Idaho. He was the oldest of 8 children, and when he was getting ready to leave to do a volunteer missionary work, his dad told him on a train platform that he wouldn't be there when he got back. It was going to be for 2 years, and that he had a brain tumor. And he said, there's 2 things I want you to know. He said, number one, you're the oldest, and I want you to help Mom raise the rest of the children, the 7 children, which he did. And then he said the second thing is I have a life insurance policy that will pay the 60-acre farm off, and that should be enough to help you and Mom raise the children. It was only 60 acres, but he did that when he got back. He sent several of them through college. And so my dad was always a big, big believer in life insurance, I think because of that. And he always carried a lot of life insurance. We didn't have a lot of money, but he kind of taught me that life insurance should be sacrificed for. And we had a pretty good-sized farm, about 500 acres, and he used to have to borrow about $250,000 every year to buy fertilizer and seed, pay the hired men, live on. And then at the end of the year, we would sell the crops, hopefully have enough money to pay the bank off. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. And then go at it another year. He'd go up one side of the street and down the other side of the street, hitting up banks to see if they would loan him some money. So 70s, I graduated from high school in 1975. In early 70s, Jimmy Carter was the president. I think it was 1972. And my parents called us. There were 5 of us. And they said, we may lose the farm. We can't get a loan. If we do get a loan, interest rates are going to be 24, 26% interest. And we just can't afford that. We may lose the farm.
Oh, boy.
And they wanted us to all know that. And so we were worried. I remember going to school being worried. And then our insurance guy came out. My dad was paying between $14,000 and $16,000 a year for his whole life insurance. And so our agent came out and said, well, Bill, that's what my dad went by. He said, you can just borrow for your life insurance. You got enough money in there. And so he was able to borrow enough money from his life insurance policy at that point in the early 70s because he believed in it and had accumulated some cash in it to really save the farm. I mean, it really, if you ask him, I mean, he invested in 2 things, the farm and his whole life insurance, and kind of used it as his platform. But those are really the 2 things that he invested in.
That's a phenomenal story, Terry. When you told me about that last week, I said, I got to have you on my radio show because the negativity, or I don't know, to me, I mean, I'm going to ask you a philosophical question, but you've been in the finance business a long time now, Terry. Everyone says this is a dumb thing, but it's really not, is it? Putting money into this stuff.
Well, sometimes I get, first of all, I guess it's how you're taught, and I think there's a lot of information out there that is just untrue. Sometimes I'm asked, hey, what is the rate of return on life insurance? And you hear a lot of the radio pundits and personalities say, well, you can't do that because it's a horrible rate of return. It's a horrible rate of return. Well, we still have the farm in the family, and when people say, well, what's the rate of return on a life insurance policy? And when I think of my dad's policies, the farm's now paid off. It's worth a lot of money. My dad doesn't really look at money the way most people do, so he doesn't really think he's just kind of an old farmer, drives an old pickup 90, so he doesn't drive now. He's living with my sister. But when people say, what's the rate of return? What's the rate of return? I tell them I can't calculate that because I have 2 sisters that are school teachers now. I was able to go to college. I have a brother that's disabled, fell off a roof. He was a roofing contractor. And my dad provided a home for him and his family free and clear on the farm. And we have lots of kids. I have 8 grandkids. And I just can't tell you what a blessing that has been. And it not only goes back to my dad, but to my grandfather, who I never met, on how important it was to take care of the family through life insurance. Not only death benefits, but also the living benefits, being able to have access to the cash and also have the guarantees there.
Yeah, that's an incredible story, Terry, and it's true. And when you told me that, I said, we got to share this with the public. Now, the thing is, but, again, we got Dave Ramsey, you got celebrities like Dave Ramsey saying this is a horrible thing. And, but it's not. And you've read my, go ahead.
Yeah. They think short term, in my opinion. They think, short term. And to me, life insurance should be, multi-generational. My grandfather, who I never met, I'm being blessed because of him. And we now have children and grandchildren. My wife put whole life policies on our kids so they would understand life insurance. And we've started buying life insurance policies on our grandchildren now. And so it's multi-generational. And I think a lot of the radio people that talk about this, it's really just a lack of understanding. I want to say ignorance, but maybe that's too strong of a word. But they just haven't lived it. And I can tell you that life insurance is because of love, and it should be multi-generational. You should think 60, 70, 80 years out how it will bless your family, like it's blessed my family.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. Now the whole thing is, now you're in Charlotte North. You're in the Charlotte area. Charlotte, is that how you say it down there? But the funny thing is that you've read my books, but the funny thing is that the banks are the biggest purchasers of stuff than anybody, aren't they? What do you say about that?
Yeah, banks. Yeah, and life insurance is more than just a death benefit. I don't think that. Again, the people that preach against it don't understand that, there's all kinds of living benefits, long-term care benefits, access to cash, there's guarantees. But the banks, and we happen to have one of the largest banks in the world right here in Charlotte, Bank of America, they put billions, not millions, but billions of dollars into whole life insurance to be part of their safe assets, which is just phenomenal. And I think that a lot of the people don't understand that banks are really the largest buyers of whole life insurance because of safety.
Yeah, they are, because I've written books about that, and that's true. The Bank of America is, I think they're one of the largest, if not the largest. It could be them or Wells Fargo, I'm not sure. But the fact of the matter is...
Some have billions.
Yeah, but Bank of America, and this is verifiable, as... actually, because I was doing some work for someone down in your neck of the woods, Bank of America has over $21 billion. That's with a B, cash surrender value on their books, on their life insurance benefits, and the death benefit, Terry, on that BOLI is called bank-owned life insurance. I think is about 5 to 6 times that. So the one of the biggest banks in the world in your own backyard has more life insurance than anybody. But now you live in Charlotte, Terry. How many people really know about this in Charlotte?
Well, not as many as should know. Very, very few people understand that banks have a lot of whole life insurance. They just they don't understand it. But the way I look at it is that the banks probably hire, because I live here and a lot of my neighbors work for Bank of America. And a lot of these guys are really bright guys that went to Ivy League schools, got their MBAs there. And if they think it's good, for the bank as a safety tool, and then it must be good. I mean, that's one way to take a look at it. But they buy it as part of their tier 1 assets. And I've been told that it helped them get through this last economic downturn in 2008 and 2009 as well, because it was safe money.
Yeah, it's amazing. Matter of fact, and I have a friend actually. Who actually one of his biggest customers is Bank of America, and I'm doing some work for him, but he didn't know this. But that's a great story, and the thing is, I hate to say it, but in my own practice, I've actually had 57 life insurance claims paid over my career, which is pretty amazing. But there's so many more stories like this. Do you have any other personal stories like your family like that, where it's made a difference in someone's life?
Well, actually, when I first got into the business, I have a very, very good friend who I got into the business with. We golfed together, and he kind of got out of the business, but we had a $400,000 policy on him. And I called him up. We were going to go down to California. We were living in Utah at the time, and he wanted to. We wanted to go down there and do a little golfing vacation. And I called him up and said, "Hey, are you ready to go?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just not feeling good today." And I kind of gave him a real hard time. I thought he was just kind of copping out on me. And so I went down anyway, and I called him back, and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" Thinking that, he was getting better. And he passed away 6 months later of leukemia. And but his wife was able to, buy a home, and they had a little girl. And I'm not here to say that we can ever replace that, and don't ever mean that we can, but we were sure the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm sure you've got a lot of stories like that. But I just take a look at it as being, a real blessing in people's lives, and to be able to, help family out. The other thing my dad did is he bought policies on us, and always taught us that you buy it because you love someone, and you want to make sure that you take care of them.
That's a wonderful story to share with our audience, Terry, and we need to hear more people like that because, as I did my research in my book, I showed this is how Walt Disney started Disneyland. Everyone else, all the bankers turned him down. His family turned him down. They said, "Walt, you're crazy. You can't create a theme park for families and family fun without alcohol." And they said, "Walt, you're crazy." And he sold his Palm Springs home to finance the initial study, but he borrowed most of the money from his life insurance to start Walt Disney and Disneyland. So I guess all we need, Terry, is a Mickey Mouse plan, huh?
That's right. And, I love Disney World. I love Disney. The family down there at Christmas time. But there's just so much more to it. We have a client in Greensboro that buys and sells dump trucks, and he got tired of going to the banks, and so he kind of started his own little bank, his whole life insurance policy. And now he borrows from it, buys a dump truck for $20,000, puts $5,000 into it, sells it for $30,000 or $35,000, and that's how he runs his business, which is just awesome because he doesn't have to, go through any red tape to get a loan.
Yeah, because which we talk about loans now. Full disclosure, I'm a Christian knight. We have a lot of Jews on this show, and you're a Mormon. You're our first Mormon, Terry. So congratulations. Okay. We love them all. But one of the things which I've been studying, how does the Mormon religion because one of my whole things is about usury. But what's the Mormons church take on interest and usury and that type of thing?
Well, first of all, like a lot of religious organizations, they're strictly against usury, and they're also to try to get out of debt at any cost. I mean, they don't have a problem for getting to debt for homes and education. Cars may be a little iffy, but to try to stay away from debt if at all possible, and also to really never take advantage of anyone by charging exorbitant interest rates, but always be fair in your business dealings is what we're taught.
Okay, all right. So now I'm going to throw you a curveball, Terry. But Mitt Romney was he made all this money essentially by leveraging company and using debt. I don't know. But is he going to be becoming U.S. Senator probably in Utah? I would think so.
I think he's got it in the bag there. I think he's got that because Orrin Hatch is endorsing him, and I don't know why. I'm not from Utah, but it's kind of like with Hillary Clinton when Hillary moved to New York and became a senator there for about 2 months. Mitt, as you know, was the governor of Massachusetts, and then he's lived in California most of the time, and made a lot of money leveraging companies. You could argue both ways on what happened. Of course, Obama, took that, but the other way. But yeah, I think he'll be the senator in Utah and take over for Orrin Hatch. I'm not a super big fan, but good for him.
Yeah, So the whole thing is, I just wonder how he squares it all because as I say, Toys R Us, that was a Bain Capital company. They went bankrupt, put 40,000 people out of work, and I just want to have transparency. But thank you for your perspective on that. That's what I really wanted to get at. Now,
yeah. I don't know if he always. I don't know his business well enough, but we're strictly against usury.
Okay, thank you. That's now, but also, Terry, amongst other things, you also happen to be an author. How do you have time to do this? What do you tell us about that?
I enjoy writing. I actually had a school teacher in high school, and it kind of tells you how you can affect people's lives. And I was writing a paper, and he said, "Man, you're a pretty good writer." And, I didn't have a lot of people saying those kinds of things to me. So it kind of always stuck with me that, hey, someone thinks I could do something good. And so I've always enjoyed writing. And a few years ago, our son left on a 2-year Mormon mission, and I know a lot of people from around the country, and they said, "What's he doing? What's he out there doing?" And I would explain to them. But my books are called Three Mormon Missions, and it's about the young men that go, the ladies that go, and also the couples that go. And they're not really meant to be a religious group or to try to convert anyone to Mormonism. They just take three ordinary people and kind of the challenges that they have to overcome. They all end good. I'm one of those guys. I like to end everything on a happy note. But they all have their own personal challenges that they have, whether it's a rift with their father. One of the characters is from the farm, and he gets sent to New York City. That's where I went on my 2-year mission. And when I was there, they said, "Okay, what you need to do is you need to go into the subway to get to your area where you're going to be serving." And I looked at him and I said, "What's a subway?" I mean, I've never been on a subway before, And so it's just challenges like that. My last book that we coming out here is about couples, and about a couple going to the Delta in Mississippi. He was coaching baseball, so he starts an African-American baseball team to help the kids there. And so kind of novels through that medium of Mormon missions, but not meant to be, proselytizing or anything like that. Meant to just be fun. Most of the people that read them say they're a good beach read. Okay.
And how can people find get copies of the book? What's the best way for them?
Well, there's you can go to Barnes and Noble and Amazon, and also the publisher of the books is Lulu. And if you do just Three Mormon Missions, Terry Cook, you can find out where to get those. But they're fun books to read. Simple, easy reading. I'm not, I can't write complicated stuff like you.
So I try to make it simple, Terry. I mean, it's
you do. It's easy to understand. I was just having fun with you.
Well, thank you. So it's just one of these. You have a really good take on this, and you have really good values, Terry, and I admire that. And your kids now. We have a couple of dentists. What are your kids doing now?
Well, I have 3 children. And I have a daughter that's got 4 kids, and her son has a trucking company doing very well. Goes down to Charleston every day and picks up from the ports of Charlotte and does very well. My son is starting his very, very first job in less than a month. He went to a dental school and then did a residency at the hospital here in Charlotte. And he's a fast producer of children. He and his wife, they have 4 children under the age of 5.
Holy moly.
They were over there yesterday. I don't know how they do it. I mean, I don't know how they do it. But some people were meant for that. They get a lot of anguish from people. But when you're around them for about 10 minutes, you see that they were meant to have kids. I mean, They do a great job. And then my baby, she graduated from UNC Greensboro in art. And she works at the community college and helps run the art department, works for the dean there, and she loves art and was able to find a job in art and loves it, and so been very blessed with my family, and then been married to my wife for 37 years.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, and I met your daughter last week, and she's a very pretty girl, and you're very blessed to have her. Question. This is kind of a philosophical question, but you've been doing this a long time, Terry, and I just see more. I don't know if this is my take. I see more and more financial engineering. I don't know if you saw that, but AT&T has been allowed to purchase Time Warner. I don't know if you saw that for $65 billion, so it's turning everything to a big monopoly. What direction do you think the country's going, Terry, right now? You have a good insight on this.
Well, I think it goes in cycles, number one. I mean, you have all these mergers, which is, the people that put them together say it's economies of scale, which means they don't have to use as many people to get the job done, and so, it wrecks jobs most of the time. And I think sometimes, and that's not all bad. I mean, I'm not against that entirely. But at the same time, this is a people world, and sometimes I question these companies always merging when families get caught in that, and sometimes I think they have to question what is the purpose of the business, and I think one of the purposes of the business should always be to take care of people and not just make money for stockholders and become a monopoly so that you can make a lot of money. And I think we're kind of moving away from that a little, and I'm mostly conservative, but when it comes to that, I sometimes I have to question if the right motives are there, and it's just all about profit. And I understand profit's important. I'm not discounting that, but I think there needs to be a balance. And sometimes I think we move away from that.
I would agree. I agree with you 300%. Yeah, everyone has to make a profit, no question about it. But I don't know if you
don't need to be greedy. Don't
you
need to be greedy.
Yeah,
greed.
Because S&P Dow Jones just announced this week or the other week, Terry, that there was over $1 trillion in stock buybacks between April 1st, 2017 and March 31st of this year, which is just incredible financial engineering. And so we don't need any more financiers, but what would you give for advice for young people? People ask me that, what would you tell people that are starting out, say, like, not your kids, but say kids in their 20s or whatever, to get ahead financially? What should people do? What would you've been doing this a long time, but what are your suggestions?
Well, number one, non-economically, just talking about their lives, I've tried to teach this to my kids, is to get as much education, good education that you can, and better yourself and take advantage of every opportunity that you have, because the world is changing. And my son could have become a regular dentist, but he wanted to kind of hone his skills, and so took a residency to help his skills out. And so do everything you can to better yourself, to take advantage of opportunity, but then don't get caught up in the world. And I tell my kids, and they get tired of listening to me, that and I haven't always followed this, but when I started doing it, I started doing a lot better financially. But I tell them, save 20% of your income. Save 20. My son's going from not making anything. Actually, he's making small amount from the hospital to where he's going to be making very, very good income. And if you get started in saving, paying yourself first. I also believe in being generous, and but if you save, pay yourself first, and pay, have a generous heart. I don't care what religious denomination you go to, but try to help out and then pay yourself first. My dad always taught me, pay God first, yourself second, and then you can take care of the rest. And so I don't think those principles have changed. I might be out of date by some people, but I still hold true and fast to save. 20% might be a lot to some people, but I do it now. My wife and I do it now, and it's been a real blessing. We can help people that way.
Yeah, you're able to be a lot more independent, and you don't have to be. I on the email, I don't know if you had a copy of the email you sent up, but it was Mark Twain who said years ago, a banker will give you an umbrella when the sun is out and take it away when it rains, and
Yeah.
So the idea of having patient, prudent reserves, it's really going to help everybody. It's going to help individuals. It's going to help their families. It ain't going to help the banks, but but they're already it was 40-50% of profits in the United States now from the banks. But it's really, really, that's spot on advice for the next generation. And just one little quick question too is that, what's your take on the kind of hypocrisy? Because you've read my books, that a lot of these financial institutions would say life insurance is bad and the whole thing like that. Even Elizabeth Warren says she hates annuities, but this is one of her biggest assets. Why do you think there's so much hypocrisy in the world, Terry? What's your take on that?
I wish I knew the total answer. The only thing I can do is guess and hypothesize and all of that. I think I don't know. I don't want to be too cynical here, but I think economics drives some of this. I think people want to make a stand because they have an interest in it. Not saying that these people do, but I think that when young people hear these things, and it's really difficult for young people because they get hit up from all sides. We all do, not just young people, on where to invest, how to invest, where to keep our money safe. And I think is to use just common sense, and that's one of the things I've been a follower of yours and your books, and really what you talk about in there is just good old common sense, and what makes sense and what feels right. But to not be caught up, I mean, there's nothing wrong with listening to an Elizabeth Warren or some of these other people, and then deciphering in your mind what is right and wrong, and find out if they have any hidden agendas and why they're talking the way they do. But some of these people, and a lot of them are this way, they just talk because they've got an economic interest in it, or that they feel like they can gain something politically from it, and just be on guard.
Well, so, and even Terry, it's been a really great show. Let's keep in touch. You did a great job. You're actually very good in the radio. You're very you're spot on, and you got a thumbs up here from everyone, Terry. So we just keep pushing back the frontiers of ignorance, Terry. We'll be in touch.
That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. And I know you have an audience already, but your books are fantastic, and I love reading them.
Well, thank you so much, Terry. So let's keep in touch, and you listen to.
Okay, thanks, Barry.
And you have a good day. And you listen to WSCA in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And my name is Barry James Dyke with my sidekick Will Pierce and my handsome engineer Phil Kleiger, and we'll do it again next Wednesday.
This has been The Economic Warrior with your host, Barry James Dyke, broadcast live at WSCA Portsmouth Community Radio, engineered by Phil Kleiger. If you have any questions about today's show or need an ally in conquering the battleground of finance, contact the warrior himself at barryjamesdyke.com.
Who are the warriors?